Inside America's Boardrooms, the informational show for board members and corporate secretaries. Brought to you with Knowledge Partners, Diligent, PwC, Center for Audit Quality, the Conference Board, and Corporate Board Member. Along with content contributors Equilar, Meridian Compensation Partners, Wilson Sonsini Goodrich and Rosati, Donnelly Financial Solutions, and the Society for Corporate Governance.
Welcome to this edition of Inside America's Boardrooms. I'm TK Kerstetter, the CEO of Boardroom Resources and the co-founder and editor-at-large of Corporate Board Member magazine. We're here in the Conference Board studios in New York, and we have part two of what was a very interesting topic on board oversight, fostering an ethically competitive company. And joining me is somebody who lived that world during their career. And it's my pleasure to welcome Larry Thompson, who is not only the chair of the Ethics and Compliance Initiative, but he's also a board member with the Southern Company and Graham Holdings Company. Now, it's important that I give you some background. Larry had a long career with PepsiCo as Executive Vice President of Government Affairs and GC and Corporate Secretary. He was also confirmed by the U.S. Senate as Deputy Attorney General of the United States, and President George W. Bush named Larry to head the government-wide corporate fraud task force. So this is somebody that has a little bit of experience in this space. And Larry, it is just a pleasure to welcome you to the show.
It's good to be here.
So our topic of competing ethically is, first of all, it's not strange. We have had a series of corporate events that have sort of positioned ethics and fraud and those kind of things center stage for boards of directors. Investors want boards to step up as they want the senior managements to do. And all that revolves around culture. Now, we know that culture is a challenge to measure, and it's even a bigger challenge for the board to get its arms around. So how, as a board member, as a former GC, how would you explain to a board on how they get their arms around their culture?
Well, again, it's good to be here. I think when you're talking about competition, first of all, you can compete in a no-holds-barred way, and sometimes that devolves into competing in an unethical manner, but it's not long-term. It's not going to be successful. It's only short-term. So for a board in understanding how it needs to establish a culture of ethics and compliance and integrity, it needs to understand that a culture of integrity is fundamental. It's very important to the long-term success of that company. And if the board understands that, then the board is going to have to exercise leadership in making certain that management understands that establishing a culture of ethics and compliance and integrity is very important to the board. The board's going to have to be persistent. This is hard work. The board should expect periodic reports from management as to the status and progress, and the board on its own should test and evaluate whether or not what management is doing is successful. This is hard work, but as I said, this is very important to the long-term success of the business or enterprise.
So, just as an example, should the board find ways to, move down the ranks a little bit to understand and, what the sort of the tenor of the employees is, matches what's being
Sure.
reported, or how do they sort of get their validation that here's where our culture is?
Well, I don't think the board should micromanage what management is doing in this important area. I think the board should make certain that management has professionals, competent and outstanding professionals to implement a high quality ethics and compliance and integrity program. There are all kinds of best practices out there, and I think the best practices involves the Blue Ribbon Panel, the Blue Ribbon Commission, established by the Ethics and Compliance Initiative, and it has a whole list of high quality practices and principles that make up a successful ethics and compliance program.
So let's take the leap from what you were just commenting about to board leadership, okay? We have, on this show and in previous parts of my career, I've really carried the banner for the need for board to have independent leadership.
Yes.
And it seems like in this space of what's happening now with sustainability, with sense of purpose, with what investors, institutional investors are really putting pressure on issues that really sort of we haven't had to deal with before, okay? Talk to me about how you view board leadership and, you know, putting somebody in the position to make sure that the board's doing the right thing.
Well, I think it's important that the board be independent and that it exercise leadership in this important area. And the reason is it's to act in the interest of the shareholders. And again, the board needs to understand that having a high quality ethics, compliance, and integrity program is essential to the long-term success of the enterprise. A couple of key concepts I think a board member should understand. Number one, that in this successful program, there are two concepts that are very important, and the board must be willing to adopt these two principles, and that are transparency and accountability. The organization must be prepared to be transparent about what it's doing and hold itself accountable when something unforeseen or in the case of wrongful conduct, when that happens, the board must be willing to hold itself accountable. And it can't hide, sweep these under the rugs. The next thing I think a board must be prepared to do is accept the fact that the managers, the executives who are responsible for the ethics and compliance program should be on an equal footing with all the other key departments, key priorities of the business enterprise, should be on an equal footing with sales, product development, law, internal audit. And the board has to make certain that these important functions are staffed properly and appropriately, and that the professionals in these programs have equal access to the decision makers in the company, including equal access to the board. Well,
again, we're going to be entering or have entered some interesting times, and I know the work of the ECI is going to be helpful. It is a challenge, which you've seen in some of the data, because employees feel pressure to meet goals. Okay,
yes.
And if that pressure moves them to unethical practices, then a company has gone too far. And again, we've seen examples of that. But hopefully we can, I know you guys have some studies coming up. We're anxious to maybe cover those results in the future. And I personally want to thank you for taking the time to come and join us for this great topic.
It's good to be here.
Yeah. That will conclude this edition of Inside America's Boardrooms. We hope you enjoyed the show. We'll be back again next week when we take another look at a critical topic that'll help you be a better board member or committee member. So we'll see you then.
Join us again next week for Inside America's Boardrooms. Brought to you with Knowledge Partners, Diligent, PwC, Center for Audit Quality, the Conference Board, and Corporate Board Member. Along with content contributors Equilar, Meridian Compensation Partners, Wilson Sonsini Goodrich and Rosati, Donnelly Financial Solutions, and the Society for Corporate Governance.